The Prophecy Brothers in color. Starring Brother Man and Brother Champion. They are brothers. They are unorthodox. Tonight's guest, Brendi Wells, reveals Operation Chariot.
Good evening and welcome to the Prophecy Brothers. I'm Brother Man, going solo again tonight. Brother Champion couldn't make it, but we have a special guest tonight, and that is Brendi Wells from Caravan to Midnight. Brendi was born and raised in South Africa and has been on the forefront of making the world aware of what was and is currently going on in South Africa today. Since 2014, she has exposed the atrocities and heartbreaking reality of the persecution her people are suffering as a result of the 1994 communist takeover disguised as democracy. She is currently living in America with her husband, John B. Wells, whom she met when she was on the show Caravan to Midnight in August 2014. Together, they have taken awareness of this cause to the highest levels of governments around the world. Today, she will explain what the next steps in rescuing a nation of people from a sure extinction. So thank you for joining us on the Prophecy Brothers, Brendi.
Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be on your show.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let us know, if, like most Americans, we probably don't know what's going on in South Africa. I mean, we have maybe somewhat awareness, but if it came from the mass media, it's probably not the right understanding of what's going on there. So can you fill us in a little bit more where we introed with your bio and let us know what's going on there?
Yes, I think what the world has been exposed to was one story, and what we were exposed to was in the country during the time was a different story. And as we have now learned through various channels, now that we have woken up really to see what is going on, we now know that it was all propaganda. The thing is, what the world was told about South Africa and what really happened in South Africa was two completely different stories. Now, as you know, with the advent of President Donald Trump becoming president of America, a new era really stepped into the fore, and people like you and me, just normal patriot, Bible reading Christians, that just really wanted to live and to make a life for ourselves and raise our kids and do good, just live our lives free from government and oppression. The reason why America was founded and South Africa, we wanted to get away from the crown and just be free and serve God. So at the point is that while we were in South Africa and everything was going on in the world with the anti-apartheid propaganda that went into the world, my people, the white people in South Africa that really built that country from absolutely nothing. I mean, the first settlers landed there in 1652. I mean, that is a very long time. At the time, there was nobody there. There was just a few people, and they were called the Khoisan. So the people that are there, the black people that claim anybody stole their land, they weren't even there when the Dutch landed. So be that as it may, it was just bush. There was nothing there, and the white farmers, or the Afrikaans speaking, which is a version of Dutch, those specific people are being persecuted. What they have really done is they've filled the country. They wanted to get away from the British, and and that's why they moved inland to get away from Cecil John Rhodes and slavery and all the stuff that colonialism brought in, and they just really wanted to farm and be free and not be interfered with. So at the end of the day, after this huge struggle that Nelson Mandela went all over the world to talk about, my country went through a so-called peaceful transition. Now, what the world was told in terms of what apartheid was, and apartheid is just a Dutch word, it means segregation, but they weaponized that word to the point that it actually means something heinously evil. So if you say to anybody outside of South Africa that you are a South African and they look at you and they see your skin is white, you are immediately branded as this vicious racist that just went and killed all these millions of black people. And that in itself is an inherent lie. That never happened. Yes, there was clashes between the security police and certain people when they were marching and burning things down and planting bombs all over the place. But we were in a fight against communism at the time. We were fighting a war on the border. All the boys got conscripted to the South African Defence Force and had to serve 2 years in the army. And we were fighting communism. We were fighting people coming in from over Mozambique armed with AK-47s issued to them by Russia. And in those days, in the 70s and the 80s, I mean, Russia was still communist Russia. So not only were we fighting the war against communism on the border, we were also fighting a war against it from the inside. We were infiltrated. And Nelson Mandela himself, he is a communist. He's always been one. He's killed a lot of people. He blew up banks. He blew up buildings. He blew up post office, shopping centers. He killed children. His wife burned a 12-year-old boy with a tire and gasoline in the road. His name was Stompie. Go look this up. I'm not making it up. It really happened. But what the world was told was that we were these oppressors and we were just absolutely treating these people horribly. And where in fact what happened, and President Verwoerd, who was also known as the father of apartheid, he got assassinated for the good work that he did. I mean, you need to understand, Africa is a different culture. It's a different continent, a different mentality. You're looking at 7 to 8 tribes of people that are inherently warring tribes. They were killing each other. There was forever a war going on. So the logical thing to do was to give everybody a piece of land and say, okay, we'll show you. We funded this. That's where the homelands were created. And if you even look on the internet and you do a search and you look at President Verwoerd from South Africa interviewing these homeland presidents, because that was inherently their own country. It was their own place. They could teach their children in their own language. They had their own hospitals, schools, libraries, everything, and we funded it. So it was never meant as something terrible where we found some piece of swampland and just threw a bunch of people on it. No, we literally nurtured every single one of these tribes because we were all part of one, and it was self-determination for every tribe. And then, you know, that is the specific brand of identity politics that the Democrats and the communists and the socialists, and we now all understand the rhetoric, but at the time we didn't have Facebook and YouTube and social media and the internet for that matter to be able to communicate. So all we got was what we saw on the news, and they told us that if we did not vote for this peaceful transition, that there's going to be a bloodbath, and these Africans are going to raise up and absolutely destroy and kill us. So obviously that's not what we want. I mean, we Dutch. I mean, you can't get more liberal than the Dutch. We wanted to help. But that got completely painted and distorted. It's exactly the same as what you are witnessing happening in your own government right now, where President Trump is being villainized and criticized. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that he can do that they will be happy with. And that is exactly the situation that we had to deal with. they made it out like we killed millions and millions of black people, where it's a lie. That never happened. The total death toll, and I mean, I'm not saying that in any disrespectful way, but and because every single life lost is a life lost, and it's terrible. But the total death toll of the whole apartheid era, which was from 1948 to 1994, was about 7,000 people, and that was as a result of them rising up and the security police moving in, and similar scenarios that you had in, like, for instance, Ferguson, jumping up, burning things down. I mean, and then those type of clashes, there was a loss of life, but not just on the one side. And that is what the world was never told. It was just showing all these poor people that just got killed, but they got killed because they were attacking the police and absolutely burning down things and blowing up things. So there's a lot of soldiers and police men that also died in this fight, and those people are just completely forgotten. So it wasn't just a one-sided thing, but what the world was told, it was this one-sided thing. So ever since um, Nelson Mandela became president, and we've now 25 years later, and you could see the progression of communism in my country. It just absolutely deteriorated to a point where I don't recognize the country anymore when I go there. It's very sad.
So, Brendi, just to recap, there were some tensions internally, if I understand right. Nothing like what it is now, but the communists came in and stirred this up. There wasn't anything like there was after they. Did they fund Nelson Mandela, or how did that all work?
Well, it's interesting that you ask the question, because if you look at all the photographs of Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk, who was the last white president of South Africa, and he also kind of took over with a coup. The previous president, P.W. Botha, um, it was said that he had a stroke or something bad happened to him, and then FW kind of stepped in, and it turned out later that he was actually poisoned. So and F.W. de Klerk was a very good friend of George Soros, and you understand where he comes from and who he represents in terms of, the bigger scheme of the big banking world order, whoever is moving this one world order agenda forward. There's many players, and that's a completely different interview. But the point that I'm making is that both Mandela and FW were both 33rd degree Masons, and you can go look this up. I'm not making this up. So this was a planned coup. When I was living in South Africa and I grew up there, during that time, there was no conflict between black and white on the street. Nothing. I mean, even on the farms, they worked for us. I remember reading in the newspaper, and this was about a couple of months before the first election, where President Nelson Mandela became, or when Nelson Mandela became President Nelson Mandela. That was in 1994. And I still read this newspaper, and this friend of mine, Zinhle was her name, and we actually grew up together, kind of, we've always known each other. And I read how racist we were, the white people. And I read this to her, because I was like, wow, I didn't know I'm this racist, because, I mean, I speak Zulu. I mean, you don't speak the language of people that you hate. Do you agree with me? So she said to me, well, but that's just a lie. I said, well, obviously, but I didn't understand at the time just how deep that lie was and how far it went into the world in terms of propaganda. So if you talk to anybody from that era, black or white, I mean, I'm not talking about a politician or somebody that worked for a union and that got paid to blow stuff up. I'm talking about your average citizen. There was no tension. We were unaware of this huge anti-apartheid movement until probably towards the end. We didn't know. We were oblivious. So there you go. And apparently, according to John, and I totally agree with him because of my experience the last 4 years in America, is that South Africa was the blueprint of what they wanted to achieve in America ultimately. And it worked so beautifully. The propaganda worked. They got everybody to all the entertainers, the famous singers, the Bruce Springsteen and his Sin City, and they just got everybody involved to protest this heinous racial division in South Africa. And by the time 1994 rolled around, there wasn't a segregation law on the book anymore. It was gone. But if you even want to go into that, segregation was really implemented by Cecil John Roche, and that was the British, because they found gold and they just displaced people off land. And he finally went and he founded Zimbabwe. But the point is, that was a British thing. That was in 19 that was in the late 1800s when he implemented the Glenn Gray Act, which actually effectively removed people from their land. And that was Cecil John Rhodes. And then in 2012, that became law. I mean, 2012, sorry. In 1912, that became law. And in 1913, the ANC was formed to fight Cecil John, the British, to get their pieces of land back. But the farmer, the Boer, the Afrikaner had nothing to do with that. We at that point had left. We were crossing the Drakensberg. So by the time 1948 came around and we became a government, the NP came into, the National Party came into power, and that was in 1948. And then only in 1961 did we become a republic. We fought 2 wars against the British. They threw us in concentration camps. The black people fought with us. So it was never the Afrikaner and the black people really against each other. If that ever happened, that happened at a level that we normal citizens were completely unaware of. If you look at the whole scenario, you can actually see the playbook. If you watch blow by blow what is happening in America now, I mean, I sit and tell John, I said, next thing what they're going to do is this. Watch, he's going to say that. This is going to be the response. And it's not because I'm a clairvoyant or I can see the future. It's just I have lived through this. And if you mix the same ingredients, you are baking the same cake. And what they're trying to do is to create a civil war, and they want to ultimately put America into starvation mode. And you can take this back all the way to the Bolshevik Revolution. Every time they install communism, this is the recipe. So this is what they're trying to do here.
Brendi, why South Africa? Why were the communists focused on there? Is it for resources, or is there something else that they were looking to accomplish there?
There's many reasons. Okay, number one, South Africa is a very mineral-rich country. We have gold and silver and platinum and diamonds, and we have all that. And that is pretty much controlled by only 1 or 2 families in South Africa. But we were an ally of the United States. We were also a protector of Israel. We were a nuclear power. We fought with America in the Second World War. I mean, many of our troops actually went to Italy and to Europe, and we were fighting right next to you. President Ronald Reagan was a friend of South Africa. And that all changed when Nelson Mandela became president. Now all of a sudden Fidel Castro is our role model, and Gaddafi and all these revolutionary comrades became the heroes, and they rewrote history. So not only did they take our anthem away, they changed our flag, they took basically every Afrikaans speaking school away. So if you go and read up on genocide, just the word genocide, it's not just, taking a weapon and blowing up a few people, a bunch of people. It is systematically taking away everything they are, their rights, their language, their religion, their means to earn money, and just breaking them down to the point where there's hardly anything left. And this is what they've done to my to the Afrikaans speaking people. And even the previous president, President Zuma, said, we are, the Afrikaans speaking people is the only white African tribe. We've been there since 1652. Now, the point that I'm trying to make, and to answer your question, is that I think South Africa, because they were the protector of the continent, we fed the entire continent, and we also looked after the entire continent. The farmers of South Africa, I mean, Dutch farmers are really, really brilliant agriculture specialists. We fed the entire continent of Africa and exported food. South Africa is now in a position where they need to import food. And then again, that's a whole socialist agenda. But then if you look at Zimbabwe and the rest of the entire African continent, and you do your research, and you will see that China owns over 80% of the entire continent of Africa. That needs to be a red flag, not just a red dot on a flag. And that's exactly what happened in Zimbabwe. They took all the white people off the land, made it an identity politics situation, killed all the farmers, took all the land back. Do you think the people saw the land? No, it now belongs to China, to the point where the Chinese actually want to implement their currency in Zimbabwe, because their currency is worth nothing. I think it's $100 billion for half a loaf of bread and 6 eggs.
Well, China right now, for the past several years, they've been the biggest. I think China and Russia are the biggest buyers of gold. So I would think if they eyed South Africa for that, so they're probably exploiting and taking the gold out of South Africa. I'm only speculating on that, but
ultimately, as you can, I mean, with anything, follow the money, follow the money. And I think the whole agenda behind the entire new world order, if you look at it, is it's all about money. But they even go and say that the overpopulation is a problem. And but in the same breath, they're saying, oh, we don't have enough people because now we need all these immigrants. So if you look at the numbers, the world population has been in decline for years now. And the entire population of the world will fit in the state of Texas. Land is not the issue. The earth, God provided us an earth that can supply all our needs, including Him. It is not about overpopulation. It's about how much the banking system can withstand. And that is the problem. I think they're reaching a bubble. There's no gold back. There's nothing. They've just been printing money, and it's about to implode. And I personally think, I mean, this could be anything, but this whole coronavirus situation, it's got to do with money. I think they had a plan with all of this.
So do you think, because I was just talking to my wife about this today, do you think that they planned the coronavirus, or they had a plan to exploit a crisis whenever it popped up? Do you have a leaning on that either way?
I do, because if you look at how the globalists usually implement something big, and they always they're so fond of symbolism, and that's usually their downfall. But if you look at the religion or what they believe, I mean, they inherently, I think, evil, because their father is Satan himself. But the point is, the way they feel, if they do something bad, if they confess it, if they tell you about it, that is their confession. and that means they wouldn't have to account for that one day when they dead or something. So if you look at movies like Contagion, and there's a whole bunch of other movies, I forget the name now, but Dinar Kuntz's book, I mean, all these little things that was written 20, 15 years ago, leading to an outbreak of exactly what they were describing. To me, this was planned. And the thing is, what tells me this was planned is how desperate they were last year to impeach President Trump. I mean, they tried everything. The media, I've never seen a media gone absolutely bonkers the way I've seen the media react to President Trump's presidency. I mean, I have never seen a smear campaign. It was so blatantly obvious that even a moron could see it. And that's the point. Then when towards the end of the year, when the whole impeachment hoax, I mean, they had no case. Surely they knew they had no case, but boy, they were going to try everything. And I think they really, really tried to get his presidency destabilized and at least get him out of the office to in time for this coronavirus outbreak, because they had a plan. But I think President Trump is just one step ahead of them. So he's using their own plan against them. That is my opinion. But there's no way that this just happened. Even if you just look at the numbers don't add up.
Well, I know here in this country, not only do they try to divide us on race, I mean, they're trying to divide us along sexual lines, of course, along politics, polarizing us, everything here, race. One of the things, and I've seen the changes in this country when my kids were in school a number of years ago, they would come home and, of course, they're being taught in the schools the white guilt. And first of all, I told them, I said, well, there's nothing for you to feel personally guilty about. You weren't alive during slavery here. I wasn't. And in fact, our family was still in Europe at the time. So, our family didn't come over until the late 1800s, early 1900s. So, but it's that programming in the schools and in the media that they're trying to divide us the same way. And so obviously there's a lot of alarms going off with you, because you've seen this happen in your country with, I think you told me on the phone, the statues and going down,
Yes.
and they're doing that here. So that's definitely, you've seen this happen. So they've taken over in South Africa. Other than the race, how the results been? Or they have a thriving economy now? Is everything perfect over there? Is it better than it was? Or
No, basically what happens is that they completely emptied the treasury. Every state institution, being starting from there's only one company that provides electricity to South Africa, and that's Eskom, and that's a parastatal. It was mostly owned by the state. Also, oil, because we had all those sanctions against us in the 80s, we couldn't really get oil. So, but we have a lot of charcoal, coal, and so we invented a way to make gasoline, petrol from coal. And that's the other company, Sasol. And then you've got South African Airways, you've got the Post Office, you've got South African Transport Services. You've all those companies have since gone bankrupt. Completely. South African Airways been bailed out, I forget how many times, and they are bankrupt again. And they have now since decided to start digging into the pension funds. They have absolutely, due to corruption, emptied the treasury. There's hardly anything left. The few people that are still paying taxes are being marginalized and completely murdered. I mean, if you know how many white farmers they have literally murdered, and I'm not just murdered like boom, you're dead, tortured for hours and hours and hours in the most gruesome, horrific, disgusting, despicable, inhumane ways, what they have done to these people. And I have done many programs where I've actually shown pictures and I have gone into detail. It's horrible. I have forget how many funerals I've attended. But the point that why I asked you to for you to just listen to me, and why I am on the show today is after 25 years of us being hunted and tortured and killed and villainized and insulted, and goodness knows how many things we've been called. I mean, I was on SGD report the other when it posted yesterday, and I mean the predominant response was very positive. But then you do get that person who sent me a private message and tell me that I actually deserve to be raped and killed, and my family deserve to be exterminated because I'm an evil apartheid legacy racist. I mean, it's the same as I say to you, you just deserve to be murdered because of slavery. I mean, I had nothing to do with this. And even so, even the entire concept of what they think it is was weaponized and completely twisted and distorted by the people who designed to take over the country, because that's what they did. They took over a country, ruined it, and now with the coronavirus, and the whole country went in lockdown. I mean, it's not just lockdowns like in here where you can still go to the grocery store and do this or that. You are locked in your house. One guy got shot for just stepping out on his veranda. He got shot. I mean, he's dead. The point is, they deployed the military in South Africa on a spectacular level, all the infantry squads, and today they are calling up private doctors and nurses to the military to assist with this virus. There's a whopping, I think, 13 people today that have passed away, and there's about 1,000 cases. I mean, how on earth does that justify the military force coming out at this level, on this level? They're calling it Operation Chariot. And if you go and look at what Operation Chariot is, it was a war fought by Hitler in the Second World War to overcome these racist group of people that he felt was a threat. So just that name, and again, the whole thing was symbolism. They have been saying, and the president of South Africa right now is Cyril Ramaphosa, and that's one of the documents I'm going to be sending you. In the ANC documents, and this is an old original document that we have discovered, they have said and planned exactly what they were going to do with the white people. They knew they couldn't rise up immediately because every single white person was trained military, every man. They still had the commandos, they still were in the military, they were still in the police services, so they had to systematically get rid of them. And that's when they started this black economic empowerment and affirmative action on a spectacular level. I mean, I know of people that were engineers and doctors, and the next thing just in the one industry, Eskom, which is a company that my dad worked for, where somebody would be in a position, happen to be white, and the next thing he's reporting to a black person that just got promoted from the mailroom. Now, I don't have any issue reporting to a black person. I mean, so what? Your skin tone doesn't, it's got nothing to do with who you are. I mean, that's just a load of nonsense. And we all know that. I mean, really, pigmentation is going to be your measure stick of judging me? That's stupid. And every normal thinking person knows that. But they made it a thing. They made this whole racial thing a thing. Now, if you are qualified and you can actually do what it is that you're getting paid to do, more power to you. But don't take somebody with no education and tell them that they are now in charge of an entire engineering system that generates power for a country. guess what's going to happen? That's a recipe for disaster. Incompetence did not serve that company well. It used to be the cash cow of the previous government. It is so bankrupt that they are using the pension monies of people that have worked there for years and years and years, that is just now trying to retire, and they just have nothing to retire with. That's what they're doing.
And that's what I was, getting at a little bit earlier sarcastically was, basically the black people are probably worse off than they were 25 years ago because of this.
Oh, they are. I mean, I have seen them have posters up in protests where they say, "Bring back apartheid." Bring it back, because they had free health care, and they had free. They pretty much had a good life. I mean, health care was on such a level. We had the first heart transplant in the world, Dr. Christian Barnett in South Africa. My mom was a nurse, and basically half of my family were in the medical industry, and our universities, our medical universities, was at such a level that people from America went over to South Africa to study medicine. It is now at a situation where the entire I mean, I don't even know how to say it. All of the medical students of last year, every single one of them failed, because they got into university not on merit, not on their marks, not on their achievement, but because they were black. So what do they expect? Now the medical tests are racist because they all failed. So it's a racist test. So what's going to happen? They're going to drop the standard of the test, and what is that university going to produce now? Certainly not a doctor that I want to have operate on me, you know. So, but that probably makes me a racist too. I don't care if they pink or green. I really don't. But if you're not properly trained and understand what you're doing, please, I don't just really don't come near me.
Right. As Martin Luther King said in this, in his famous speech, by the character, not the color of the skin, by the content of the character. And that's what you're saying. It's their merit. If they've deserved it, if they've earned it, if they know what they're doing, you have no problem with it. But just to put somebody in a position, whether white or black, because of their skin color, that's wrong.
Yeah, and if you look at all the politicians, Julius Malema, Mandela, then now Cyril Ramaphosa and Zuma, they all are connected somehow to the sorrows and into the crown. And so there's Malema's big funder is Lord Renwick in the UK. And then he goes on a stage and just says the most horrific things, that they need to shoot the farmers, one bullet, one farmer, kill the farmer. They're going to hit us with a machine gun. The cabinet is going to just wipe us out. I mean, when a president, your own president, sings of your demise, that's really something to worry about. And I have been saying this since 2014, and I have been beating this drum, because they are murdering them one after another. And when I get called a racist for saying, hey, hang on, they're killing people there in South Africa because of the color of their skin, and they go, oh, that's horrible, that is so racist. And then I say, yes, but they are white. Then they go, oh, well, they deserve that. That's not a problem. So this is a double standard. Those people are still dead. A little 12-year-old boy still got drowned in boiling hot water after he had to witness them murdering his father and raping his mother to death, and then drowning him in boiling water. And that somehow he deserved that? You got to be kidding me. Now, the point that I'm making here, and what I need to say before we run out of time, is the deployment of military is called Operation Chariot. Operation Chariot, I have sent that connotation to a friend of John's who happens to be an analyst, and he said it is code. It is a code where they are then finally going to implement uhuru. Now, uhuru is a word that they use, and they've been talking about this um, over and over again, and it gets mentioned in the townships. And I have a clip, and I will put that I will send that to you, and you can put it in your more information, of a friend of mine who actually explains what uhuru is. And that means we are not yet free, because they have now been under their black government, which they were very, very proud of and very happy to be under. And I can understand that. But this black government has not been good to them. I mean, it's a communist government. So, communist government, I mean, they promise you the world and they give you nothing. You're just a useful idiot. We all know that. But they don't see it like that, because every time they want to make a noise, every time they want to protest, the government tells them that it's actually apartheid who is still doing this, and it's been taking this long. So they need to actually eradicate all the white people. And the night, or the uhuru, means that there's one night, the night of the long knives, where they're going to just go in and kill every white person. And a lot of people say that's folklore, that's nonsense, this, that, and it's conspiracy theory. And this, I mean, it's been spoken about for 20 years. There's even a South African famous uh, prophet, or he's our version of Nostradamus, Siener van Rensburg. And he prophesied about this Uhuru night. So there's a lot of people talking about it. But then I heard something very disturbing, and when I connected the dots with Operation Chariot, and then taken into consideration what they were telling me in the townships, saying what they are doing is starving the people. And then again, go back to Lenin and Marx, and this is a typical communist maneuver, for lack of a better term, strategy. They have told the black people in the townships, if they run out of food, that it's in the white people's homes. So ultimately, what's going to happen is that the government's not going to do anything, but they're just going to let the people loot, because that's what they'll do. They'll start looting. They're already looting the grocery stores. So I'm giving it another 10, 14 days, and those people are going to start becoming very, very desperate. And I'm asking now, why on earth is military deployed on such a vicious level? I mean, the roadblocks, people getting shot for stepping out of on their veranda. They have now arrested cops that were involved in these farm murders. So if the cops, the police, are actually killing their own citizens because they don't fit a demographic that they feel, they can relate to, then we have a problem. But there is definitely a brewing scenario in that country that could be the next Rwanda in the next 2 weeks.
Wow,
And
so that's
I
not
want,
a big time frame, 2 weeks, yeah.
yeah, that's why I'm here. And I want everybody to just share this information and just, and pray. And please, I believe that God is still in control. And I do believe that the tide is turning. I just hope it is in time for my people. There's only 70 million people in South Africa. I mean, it's a big, the whole country is about the size of Texas. But of that 70 million people, there's about not even 4 million white people left. They are a minority. And they have done nothing to deserve this. As a matter of fact, South Africa wasn't taken by the black people in a war. We gave it to them. There was no conflict and war and shooting. There was a negotiation. Meantime, back at the ranch, now we know that the evil ones were negotiating with themselves. We were infiltrated, but we didn't want war. We didn't, and we didn't have issues with President Nelson Mandela in terms of the fact that he was black. I don't mind a black president. I really don't. I have had one since 1994. My problem is I don't want a communist dictator ruling over me, and that's why I'm speaking up.
Boy, Brendi, I'm just curious, the black population in South Africa, what religion are they? Do any of them identify as Christian?
There are some, there are many that are Christian, but predominantly the traditional um, black person he believes in his ancestors. They have a sangoma, which is a witch doctor, for lack of a better term, and they brew potions with body parts and magic, and they put muti. Muti is their word for medicine, but it's more like a potion. And they put muti on top of each other and put curses and when they want to, when they're sick, they go to the sangoma too. And the South African government has now actually classified the sangoma as a real medical professional. So if they go to see the sangoma when they are sick and the sangoma gives them a sick note, it's a legal document, even though I've read many of those documents and it's just a load of nonsense. I mean, Sissy was sick and she didn't come to work for 2 weeks because she was thinking too much. And so, and I can say nothing about it. I had to accept it. She was thinking too much, and that's why she wasn't at work for 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's just the culture of tribalism is so inherently deep. So that is why communism is easy for them, because if the in the culture where they had in their tribe, if the leader of the tribe or the king say something, that is the law. I mean, you didn't even, because otherwise he'll kill you. So you just have to go watch Shaka Zulu. I mean, that's what they did. So the tribalism mentality doesn't really work with a Western modern um, democratic society. And what they're trying to do is blend the two. So you're actually having two systems run in South Africa concurrently. The Western system to appease the rest of the world, but underneath that is this tribalism, and that is being hidden. And that tribalism is very dangerous. I mean, this is where I said these are warring tribes. They kill each other, and very, very, very violent. And once the white people are all dead, which is what they want, or gone, they'll start turning on each other again, like it was before. It's sad.
I mean, with God, all things are possible, and
Amen.
we definitely want to pray. But I mean, what the whites in South Africa, are they considering this? Are they considering leaving? Are they trying to get out, or what? What are the whites trying to do? Are they trying to change what's happening there?
Well, the ones that had money and the means to get out, they got out. The ones that are they now are pretty stuck. I mean, anybody that is just, working 9 to 5, from paycheck to paycheck. I mean, where do you go, number one, and what's what? Our currency has deteriorated to the point where yesterday when I saw it, it was 19 to $1. And we used to be 1 to 1, $1 to R1. So that's deteriorated. So even if they do have a little bit of money, by the time they've converted it into any other currency, it's really nothing. And where do you go? My son has been denied his visa 3 times now, and I'm talking about a tourist visa, not even trying to immigrate. We just wanted him to come to my wedding, and he's 24, but he just cannot get a tourist visa to come visit me. So we're trying to get them to get him to Eastern Europe now, but with a South African passport and with all the fraud and with all the nonsense that these South Africans have pulled, it's hardly possible to go anywhere in the world on a South African passport. So my son, um, who's finished studying, he studied graphic design, cannot get a job because he's white. He cannot even get a job as a waiter in a restaurant. And last year when that happened, it was around June. I got a phone call after the Spur restaurant declined his application, and it's a chain restaurant in South Africa because of their black economic empowerment policies. He actually took an overdose and he tried to kill himself. We prayed so hard that night, and thank God he's okay. But since then, I have lost two other friends to suicide who's just absolutely lost. They have no means of feeding themselves. There's nothing they can find. They cannot get out, and in their attempts to try and get out, they sell everything that they have to pay this 3,000 rand to get the appointment at the American consulate so that they can apply for their visa, and then they get declined. And it's the same standard letter, and I'll send you a copy thereof. It's that you do not have enough assets in South Africa to ensure your return, so you can't go to America. But I mean, he's a kid. How is he going to have assets, you know? So I mean, that's what they're doing. So I don't understand why, if they don't want them there, just let them go. But it's like they don't want to even let you go. But
And this is going to be a dumb question, Brendi, just because I'm ignorant on this, so I don't really know. But humanitarian, where's the humanitarian efforts around the world? Where are the governments? Where is it? Is it because they've spun this on race that it's toxic and nobody wants to touch it?
I think so. And I think obviously the whole mainstream media is part of the whole cabal. But I have written to the UN. I've written to senators and to governors. I've written to governments all over the world, and I pretty much get a standard letter back, that it's not really part of their portfolio, and it's almost like the best one was that I got from the UN is that said that they are working with the South African government to resolve this. Um, so I don't actually know. Maybe they just want us dead. Maybe it's part of the agenda. Kill us. I don't know. I've really wrecked my brain around it, because at the time when I started my activism, I honestly thought that the UN and the people were out there to look after people, and that if there was this very strong reaction to racism in South Africa, when it's happening the other way around, surely that they would respond the same way, but they haven't. Um, I don't know. I tell you, I just know that thousands and thousands of my people have been brutally murdered. And I've been making a noise about this since 2014, and I've been called everything in the book. I mean, I forget all the names, but I don't really even care. I had death threats in my own country to the point where I had to actually leave, or I wouldn't be here today. Two other activist ladies that I know of has been bludgeoned to death. Same thing, just after they found a dead bird in their mailbox. I found a dead bird in my mailbox, and fortunately I was gone a week later. So I probably would have been bludgeoned to death too if I didn't leave the country. But I
Now,
don't know.
is there a U.S. embassy in South Africa?
Yes, there's one in Johannesburg and one in Durban, and I think there's one in Cape Town. My son was denied his visa twice in Durban, once in Johannesburg, and my daughter, I tried to get her out too, and she got denied her visa too. But it's not just my children. I mean, I think maybe it's because of my activism. I have thought that they're targeting my children, but I have now heard from many other South Africans that they cannot get a visa to get out. A friend of mine's cousin was immigrating to Australia, and and he was already working in Australia because he had a scarce skill, and he brought his family over, and in the whole process of immigrating, he needs a police clearance. And then when he applied for his police clearance from South Africa, and I mean, this is a guy who I don't think he's ever even had a parking ticket, but all of a sudden he had aggravated assault and rape and I don't know what else on his police record. And as a result, he got deported. He didn't get to immigrate into Australia. And the fact of the matter is that was a fake police report. Those crimes, he never did those crimes. So I don't know, maybe there's an agenda because I can't think of anything else. And this is not just the first person who this has happened to. And actually interviewed people on my show who this happened to. And I think there was about 3 people on my show with a whole bunch of documents. I'll go look for that episode and I'll send that to you as well. So there's something going on, and maybe they just hate us that much, but I cannot think what it is. Maybe it's all the way down to the first Boer War that we won, and the British, and the second one they threw us into concentration camps and pretty much killed more than 3/4 of the Boer population. And maybe that's why they hate us, because we fought them, I don't know.
Well, there's yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, there's no good reasoning for hate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, hate is from the devil, so they can try to justify it, but there's no good reason for it. Before we wrap up, I'm just curious. I know all 4 million whites couldn't do this, but could your son and daughter somehow make it to an embassy and claim asylum?
You see, that's the whole thing with regards to asylum, is that South Africa is considered a safe harbor country, the same as America. That's why everybody always flee to America, because it's considered a safe harbor country. It's a legal term. Now, South Africa is also a safe harbor country. It used to be a safe harbor on the continent of Africa, but it's no longer. I mean, you just have to look at the murder rate. So the problem is it's a legal thing. Is when you try and flee to a safe country, but you're coming from a safe country, they just going to deport you. The judge has nothing, no legal leg to help you. So what they do is they simply deport you back. So it's almost impossible, because number one, these people have been for over 25 years marginalized to the point where they basically own nothing. So now they have to cross an ocean, and by the time they get here, they probably have nothing left, and then claim an asylum, and they just say, sorry, but you're coming from a safe harbor country, and then they deport them back. But we are fighting that, and I'm working with a human rights defender lawyer, and we're filing in The Hague. And I know The Hague is not our friend, but because of the multiple filings of different cases that has set precedent, this and we won, this specific one should effectively, based on all the cases that we won, go through, because there's no reason that they can decline it, because the numbers, the facts, the crime, the rape, the xenophobia against black on black, there's just no way they can pretend that it's a safe harbor anymore. So we fighting it. It's taking some time, and I have done a program where I'm raising money because John and I are paying for this. So just if people could just help me, just go to caravantomidnight.com, go to contact us, and just call me and let me know if you can, anything, But yes, that is my way, and it's probably a good way to finally get that designation. But I don't know if it's going to help anybody if they start rioting in 2 weeks, So I just really want the world to know that if a Rwanda or something really terrible happens, it's not because nobody knew. We knew, but nobody wanted to say it.
Well, Brendi, I do actually feel for you in South Africa. I had no idea this was going on, and I'm sure most people won't. And that's the importance of getting this out. And with 2 weeks to go, I don't see a man-made solution here. And so I'm just going to say just a real quick prayer.
Thank you.
Dear Father God, we need supernatural intervention in the country of South Africa right now to protect everybody, to protect all life, regardless of skin color, to stop this evil, to bind the evil in this country, and to protect everybody and have them come to their senses. God, we rely on you. We can't do this for you. We ask this in your son's name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
I ask everybody that's watching, share this show, educate people, and contact if there's something that you can do to help out. Contact Brendi. Again, go to caravan@midnight.com on the contact page. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's caravan2midnight.com and then the contact page. And then you follow me on Twitter, Brendi Wells, @Brendi Wells, BRENDI.
Everybody, make sure you say a prayer and spread this, and we'll ask for supernatural intervention. We need God to step in and intervene and bind the evil. So thank you, Brendi, for being on the Prophecy Brothers. I really appreciate it. And we'll get this up in a couple days, and I'll put the links in there as well.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Prophecy Brothers.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.